Hey guys, I'm Jax, and this is my spoiler-free review for the first season of the Mystery of the Week TV series, Poker Face. And before you ask, no, unfortunately, this isn't a biopic about Lady Gaga. And no, fortunately, this isn't related to the Russell Crowe film that came out 6 months ago, also called Poker Face. Yeah, bet you didn't know that, because literally nobody does. Russell Crowe not only starred in, but wrote and directed a film called Poker Face. So this has the same name as that, no relation, and they also had no issue in being like, well, ours is called the same thing. Will people get confused? Will people think we're related? Will people try to type our thing in and find his thing? And then like one of the interns was forced to watch it just to check that they weren't, doing similar plot themes, similar ideas. They are both called Poker Face after all. And the intern was like, I didn't get through it. And they're like, we paid you to watch that movie. It's your job to watch the whole movie. He's like, I couldn't do it. And he's like giving them the money back. And so this TV series went, I guess we're now the thing called Poker Face. Except for obviously the incredible mega blockbuster song, Poker Face. So Poker Face is a throwback episode of the week TV series. It follows the format of those old 22 episode shows that we grew up with and loved. It reminds me a lot of a Supernatural, an X-Files, a Criminal Minds, where we just have characters that go into a new situation, a new town, a new locale, and there's some kind of crazy crime and murder, and they've got to solve it. The star of the show is Natasha Lyonne, everybody's favorite person from American Pie. Unless you have a different favorite like Stifler's mum or Stifler, or another member of the Stifler family. There was another Stifler, right? Like, I want to say he was in band camp. Cousin Stifler. I swear there's one with Cousin Stifler. But because I am not 12 anymore, I do not remember. So Natasha Lyonne stars as Charlie, a character who, in every episode, as she's driving around in her car, somehow gets mixed up in a murder. And much like the series that this is a throwback to, she has a gimmick, like a monk, like a mentalist, like a psych, like a... Every single one of these shows, she's got a gimmick. And what's her gimmick? She's a human lie detector. But not like the human lie detector you might be thinking. This isn't some kind of Tim Roth lie to me situation. She's not reading body cues and seeing twitches in the eye and going, you're lying because I'm a scientist for lying or whatever. And it's not some kind of, like Sherlock Holmes situation where it's like a really smart, clever human brain that's overanalyzing and overthinking about the things or whatever. You know how Sherlock does, where he walks into a room and someone's got breadcrumbs on their shirt and he's like, ha ha ha, I know that because of the breadcrumbs, you were divorced 3 weeks ago and your dog died yesterday. And they're like, how did you know? And he's like, ha ha ha, the breadcrumbs don't lie. So it's not like all of those insane things. No, because that's insane. It's not like those shows. What it is like is magic. Her human lie detecting skills are magic. And not like Harry Potter, Wingardium Leviosa magic. Just magic. It kind of reminds me of like a Stephen King thing where like everything would feel pretty normal, but like one person just can like breathe fire. That's not a real example, but it's just a thing she can do. She just has this magical gift where if someone is saying something that is not true, she can tell. And at times she can't even pinpoint exactly what they said is lying. Like if they say 3 sentences to her and she knows somewhere in there was a lie, but she doesn't know what it is. So it's this character who has this kind of crazy, insane ability, and at times it helps her solve crimes, because what's the use of having magical powers if you can't walk into a different town week to week and solve murders? The best part of this series is Natasha Lyonne as Charlie, as she just goes into these new situations, meeting these new people. Her character is so fun and interesting, but she's kind of bumbling and like terrible at solving crimes. Like, it's not like she's a detective. This isn't a Sherlock Batman situation. She isn't clever. She doesn't know what she's doing. And at times that could kind of be a bit annoying because she is so kind of incompetent. And because of the structure and the format of the series, we're actually ahead of her a lot of the time. It isn't 22 episodes, it's only 10. They've released the first 4 straight off the bat, so that's what I've seen, that's what my review is. And there is an ongoing arc that you're gonna get. But like those 22 episode shows, it is mostly focused on the episode of the weeks. And that is its biggest strength. But because of this really unique, interesting format style and this subversion of expectations that they do with the format of a mystery of the week and just mystery storytelling, it can kind of fall into the trappings of being stuck in this format that it has kind of created for itself in its first 4 episodes. So a keen-eyed listener might have heard the word subverting expectations, and they had these horrible flashbacks to Rian Johnson's Last Jedi, or they had glorious, amazing flashbacks to their favorite Star Wars Last Jedi. Well, I have brought up this traumatic / maybe amazing experience for you, because this is created by Rian Johnson, who has gone on to do Knives Out and Glass Onion, in my opinion, 2 amazing murder mystery stories that do subvert expectations and do really interesting new things with the genre. Like, he really knows the genre and he's able to pick it apart and kind of move it around to tell this really new, unique story. And in this, he's done the same. But before you click away, Rian Johnson haters, we hear his name and go, blah, blah, I don't like him, ew, ew, ew. If you're like that, don't worry, he only wrote and directed the first episode. But if you're like me and you really love him, he wrote and directed the first episode. From the first 4 episodes, which are the ones I've seen, I found it to be amazing. 3 of them are really, really, really strong. I found one of them, I won't say which one, to be okay, and I think the format kind of stops it from being really amazing, and I found it a little boring at times. But overall, this series is amazing. The cast is great, the music is amazing, and just the murder mystery of it all is really interesting, but it's doing something really new, fresh, and unique, which is kind of its biggest strength and at times its biggest weakness. And so if this sounds like the show for you, go bloody check it out and stop watching this review now, because for the rest of it, I'm going to do mild spoilers just because I think discussing the format and this new approach to telling a mystery story is interesting, but it is a mild spoiler, but also not that big of a spoiler. I'm not going to talk about who dies, who kills, this, that, but just the interesting new structure and format to storytelling that this show is doing. Usually in a mystery / monster / episode of the week format, those 22 episode shows that we loved, it would start with 3 to 5 minutes of a cold open where you would see a couple of characters, someone would die, but you wouldn't see who did it, you wouldn't see why they did it, and you'd have all these questions to be answered. Our Mulder and Scully, our Sam and Dean, they would walk into these situations and they would solve it, and we would solve it with them. Classic murder mystery style. And then by the end, they'd be like, it was this witch demon character. And you go, oh. And so in this show, Poker Face, that is not the case at all. Every episode is an hour long, and the first 15 to 20 minutes of the episode is a cold open. We are introduced to a new group of characters, and it plays out like a mini movie, like a short film, where we get everything. We get all the characters, who was murdered, who murdered them, the motive. We get every single aspect, and we know everything. And then it cuts to our main character, and she's in her car or she's in a situation. It actually is now going a flashback, and she has actually been throughout the series of events we've seen, and she often knows the murderer and the victim, or one or the other, and she is caught up in it in somehow. And then suddenly it cuts, the murder happens, and then the back half of the episode plays out. It's a really bizarre and interesting structure. Act 1 is just a whole little mini movie. Act 2 is being like, actually, she's been here the whole time. And then Act 3 is her figuring it out. It's fresh, unique, different, kind of bizarre at first, but I really, really loved it. I think for 3 of the episodes, this is a brilliant style and feeling and a different vibe for a murder mystery. They have literally taken the who out of the whodunit. It's crazy. I loved it. But that being said, for one of the episodes, at times I was like, oh, this is kind of frustrating and boring. And maybe it just depends on each murder and each, group of characters we get in each episode, because there is different new characters in each episode. So sometimes if we don't love and gravitate towards all these new characters, when Charlie is trying to figure it all out, you're just sitting there being like, it's so obviously that guy. Like, you think it's that guy, but that red herring is so obviously not a red herring. It's so obvious. And we're so many steps ahead of her. It can feel a bit tedious and boring and just kind of like frustrating. Like, she can be so silly and like kind of dumb, and she'll like say things to a character where you're like, what are you doing? Like, but I think that's just because we're so used to characters being like a Sherlock or a Batman, or I presume, I haven't seen it, every character in Criminal Minds, where they just know so much about what's going on, they're able to piece it together. Whereas because we know everything from the outset, the show has to be carried by Natasha Lyonne's incredible performance. And if it wasn't incredible and she wasn't just so charismatic with her kind of bumbling but charming and very loving kind of personality, it wouldn't work at all. But it totally does. It might not be for everybody. I think people might find this kind of a little odd and frustrating and maybe kind of boring in the back halves. But to be fair, every single episode I've seen, that first 15-20 minutes is some of the best stuff. Like, you're just like, wow, I'm getting so invested. Like, instead of getting 3 minutes where I'm like, why do I care that this guy died? Why do I care that we're solving this guy's murder each week? You really do care when the character dies. You're always really invested in now solving their murder because we've had so much time invested in their character before the main character even enters the scene. It's refreshing, it's bold, it's crazy. I wonder if this is going to be once again a classic Rian Johnson situation where some people like me are raving about it and some people are so annoyed by the format and the subversion of expectation that they're not really able to kind of grab onto it. But I do think her character is worth it. Like, just for, like, I don't know, like, often in those 22 episode shows, the mystery wasn't that clever and that good anyway. And so the mysteries not being that good and overly complex here kind of work at times because she's just a human being, and every now and then someone will say a line, she's like, wait, he was lying, which means, and then she does that, you know, that meme where the person's like and trying to figure it out and there's math and whatever. It's good, everyone should watch it. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell and comment below. I would love to know what everyone thought of Poker Face.